So today we're going to have something different. We are going to be looking at my progress in watercolor sketchbooks. So I'm not specifically talking about all my sketchbooks, not maybe the more polished ones. Or anyway, I will talk about it as we look at them. I think the oldest full as in real watercolor paper sketchbook I have is this one from 2020, and there's a kind of jump when I was only working in on full paintings on sheets and blocks of watercolor paper, and then I went back to watercolor sketchbooks. So let's have a look. So I started painting with watercolor in 2019, probably spring 2019 if I'm not mistaken, and then I was painting with watercolor, and I was using coloured pencils to enhance the effects that I obtained with watercolor. I wasn't using proper watercolor paper, which for me is a bit of a must because I paint with a lot of water and a lot of layers. I know it's not everyone's must, but for me it is. And this is the oldest sketchbook that I can find because it says in some pages that it's 2020. So definitely very close to when I started out, and I have no idea why. This is an Etcher, I think, signature sketchbook, why I skipped so many pages. I think I was very afraid of ruining it and then ended up not doing much in it. But this is one of the first paintings. It says December the 1st, 2020, as you can see. So it's, 5 years ago. And here is another one from, actually this one's earlier. It says November 2020. Oh no, so I don't know what, I started yes, because I had this notion back then that I should start somewhere in the middle of the sketchbook so I would not get the first page fear, the fear of ruining the first page. I've changed my mind since then, and I start from the beginning because I like to see my work in chronological order now. At this stage, I was really working hard on developing an expressive style. So you can see that I am working with a lot of splotches and splatters. And I have to say that is still my style in watercolor. I don't particularly enjoy tight watercolor painting, so to speak. It's the nature of watercolor that's guided me in this direction, and I have embraced it, and I want to go looser and looser, and that is my objective. And you can see that in this one as well, where the shadows and the blush in the face are basically made up of, would I dare to call them, stains of watercolor. And I like to show the expression of the portrait of the character through the colours on their face. I also use them for swatching, which is something that, you can do, admittedly, but when you're working in an expensive watercolor sketchbook such as the Etcher signature one is, maybe you can use something else to swatch your colours. This is some kind of attempt to create a landscape. And this was, there's no date again. That is why I don't advise you to. Also a lot of wasted space on this other side. Empty spread. And I think this was an attempt at painting a watercolor eye on some hot press paper, which I don't know, might be Arche, not sure. looks like it might be. And then we jumped straight into 2022 because I clearly gave up on the sketchbook for some reason. I think it was again because I thought that full paintings was, you know, the way to go, which, I mean, I still do full paintings, but I also really love painting in my sketchbooks because that's where I find that I can develop my ideas more. And these are watercolor studies. Water in watercolor studies, and I've yet not learned in 2025 how to paint water in watercolor. I'm still trying. Wasn't doing that very successfully here, especially in this one over here, which was like an underwater coral barrier scene. Another wasted spread. I would not do that now. And I think I've painted, and we're going back to 20. So this is November the 3rd, 2020. And I have painted this same painting many times. I think I had a class on it. I had a master class on this painting back in 2020 or 2021 possibly. I started something here and didn't finish it. I think this is unfinished painting. And again, one where I have this really expressive style, trying to use the colors to capture or convey the emotions of the character that I was painting. That was my cat Frida. I gave up on it, clearly. I wasn't managing to obtain the results. I think it might work better on hot press paper. This is cold press paper. And again, this is back forward into 2022. Again, painting watercolor, water. I don't know when this dates to. It could be earlier than 2022. What I really like about this is the blooms and cauliflowers and hard edges in the background. I left the face kind of unfinished. There's no shadow work in it at all. But I like the fact that sometimes the background maybe can tell the story even more so than the character who is the protagonist of the painting, so to speak. So that is something that I would like to revisit, these very powerful backgrounds. And that's it. That is such a waste of a sketchbook. And again, if I go back to it, some kind of swatch here, if I go back to it, then I will definitely have the dates in it. But my mistake was, again, which is some advice that I gave on here in the past, was don't start your sketchbook on the first page, but be sure to date the pages. Okay, that's true, but then if you forget, you don't know when you painted something, and I think it's important to see how your style evolves and to go back and get ideas from your work. So also, yeah, really such a lot of wasted paper in here. I'll have to go back and do something with this. And let's move on to the second one. These are the Etcher sketchbooks that come with this white canvas cover, which always gets very grubby. And I was definitely much more of a perfectionist back then than I am now. I embrace my shortcomings, so to speak, and the nature of watercolor so much more. And I can tell by the fact that I just totally gave up on sketchbooks and on paintings, even before pushing through the so-called ugly phase, and that I left so many blank pages. Whereas now I push myself to work through page after page, just as a journey in my watercolor evolution and work. And I know for a fact that when you go back and look on your work after a few days or even a few months or even years, you will have a different relationship with it, a better relationship with it. You will appreciate it more. So always remember to step away from your work, because I can see I was judging myself so harshly, and I had not been painting with watercolor for that long, considering that watercolor is considered to be one of the hardest mediums to learn. I was being really harsh on myself. So that was one big mistake that definitely got in the way of me experimenting more and accepting my work more. So this is a spread that I really like. I like the colors. I also clearly went over this to create this drawing with a white gel pen, and there's a wolf here. I don't know what I was trying to do, but I like the rainbow colors that I used. I also found this in here, which is such a beautiful Scottish poem, I think. Well, it's about Scotland at least. I must have found it in the front of a book. It might be Braveheart, about William Wallace. If you would like to pause and read, feel free. Sketching directly in my watercolor sketchbook, which was unusual as I was very afraid of doing that back then. And then some watercolor eyes. I think I was quite proud of these watercolor eyes back then, and I was also quite proud of this spread. I also think this was part of a class of added elements. Unfinished. And I remember not being happy with this one at all, because I just found the colours were too bright, not muted enough, and I wasn't happy with it. And I think I revisited this kind of idea several times, but I didn't have the orcas in her hair. I had like a starry sky, a starry night sky. And again, wasted space on this side. More like of an unfinished monochromatic portrait, and just left this other side empty for some reason. I think these must be some things that I saw on, could be some things that I saw on Pinterest. I'm not sure, it's too far back to remember. I know this reference image, it's a reference image on Pinterest. It wasn't a painting though, it was just a reference image. So I remember doing this was 2023, it says so, August 2023, so somehow I must have left this and then gone back to it. And did I mention this is hot press paper? I was obsessed with hot press paper back then. I skipped a page here, there's just a postcard in it, I skipped another page. There's just notes at the back and nothing else in the rest of the sketchbook. What was I thinking? Let's have a look at the next one. So again, this one was started in August 2023. Let's have a look. Surprise, surprise. We have 2 empty spreads, some silver dust in the middle of what I've learned is called the gutter of a sketchbook. Nothing. And this is definitely not watercolor, not all watercolor at least. Looks like it might be some form of pastel, gelatos, that kind of thing. I don't know what I was trying to do, honestly. The waste is what shocks me the most. The waste of just not... Okay, so I know what's coming up. So here it says August 2023. And yeah, yet another unfinished piece. This was supposed to be a door stopper. It's a rabbit. I bought it in France and I was painting this in France and I started painting it and I never finished it, and I still have this door stopper at home. She's called Miss Petite. And this is, I'm almost sure that this is one of my learning from the masters on Patreon, but I believe this was the study for it. Yes, I'm almost definitely sure that this was a study for it. So this was the Pre-Raphaelites and Dante Gabriel Rossetti, and yeah, the full version of this one is on my Patreon. This was where I got the idea for it. So that is where I am beginning to learn that watercolor sketchbooks are useful for studies. They're not supposed to be this perfect sketchbook that you flip through like a fairy tale, like a storybook. And I do have, disclaimer, I do have sketchbooks like that are more recent. They are the small landscape format Bao Hong ones, like this one, for example. And I'll show you what I mean, where I create like more finished pieces like this, or like this, and I almost consider them full paintings. But in general, I think experimenting in your watercolor sketchbook and then bringing what you love outside into a larger format onto your paper, watercolor paper block or watercolor paper sheets, individual sheets, is an excellent idea. I think it's really freeing and it's a really good way to explore, to experiment. I remember like this one, I think I made a mini print of this one for sure. And I like this one. Looking back on it, I also like this one a lot. I'm not sure whether I liked it as much as I do now. So it's funny how you can be inspired by your own self at times. Don't underestimate that. Even if you think this might not be true right now, you will see that in a few months' time, in a few weeks' time, or maybe even if it's a couple of years' time, looking back on your work, you will be inspired by what you yourself did. I remember quite liking this. It's hot press paper and I was going expressive with flowers, and even more so on this side because I let the wet and wet effect kind of really show itself in its full glory, let's say. And I like painting these kind of Rennie Mackintosh style roses. Oops. Okay, so sometimes I also give myself little notes. The water has to be outside the mouth and paint the first layers like that over and over again. I clearly like the effect that I had achieved on the lips here, so I wrote that down, and that is such a good idea because sometimes you cannot remember how you achieved an effect, and writing a little pencil note down that won't disturb the painting at all, rather than writing with a really dark pen, for example, is a note to your future self. And I also really like this one over here. I really like how muted the tones are, how free it looks, how I didn't feel the need to go into detail. And then I left these pencil leaves up at the top just without any colour in them at all. And finally we have like a proper spread where I have something on this side, something on this side, and also, yeah, of course, here too we have the double spread. We don't have the double spread here. So maybe things were starting to evolve, we'll see. And this is also a tutorial on Patreon, I'm sure. One of the recorded ones. We do live sessions, live sketching to keep our sketching skills honed, so to speak, because I find that they are the foundation of everything in a way. And also my goal is to be able to kind of draw whatever I want without having to always rely on a reference image. Or to rely on reference images as little as possible. So what we do now is live sketching sessions, and then we do, according to the tier you're on, painting sessions as well, live. Everything then gets recorded, but then I also have loads of recorded tutorials on there, which I did without going live, and this is one of them, the cats. I think one of them was missing because I lost the footage. It might be one of the two at the bottom, I'm not sure, I can't remember. But I think these cats were really fun to paint. And again, we see a more full spread. We see more experimentation in the background. It's interesting how the eyes are kind of connect with the background in colour. And we see some bright backgrounds. I was learning how colours work together more, how palettes work together. Thinking about the palette beforehand sometimes, yeah, or limiting your palette. And this is another one that I like to this day. I think I wanted to represent fire. Empty pages. I really like this one. This one is one that I sometimes open up the sketchbook just to look at this one because it was more abstract, let's say, and I just kind of let the colours melt together, leaving out some white of the paper here for those highlights. It doesn't really represent anything. Maybe this started off as an apple or something, but then it went into just full play mode, and that is what I like about working in sketchbooks, is when you just strike that note, hit that mood where you are just being playful. It's hard with watercolor sketchbooks because they can be quite expensive, or even very expensive, let's face it. So you are definitely more aware of what you're doing and of the mistakes and of ruining things. But you have options. You can either, you know, the Balhongs are cheaper, and also you can try and make your own sketchbooks if you have enough time, but they are, you can make them, and there are lots of tutorials on YouTube, and I have made my own, but right now I really have so little time that it seems like not something that looks like very possible that I could start making my own watercolor sketchbooks, but I hope I will be able to do that in the future so that I will feel even more free painting in them and using them. And this is another spread that I really love. I was beginning to kind of get the feel of painting flowers in a looser way, which is kind of hard, especially on hot press paper, but I really love the blooms I got in the background of this one. This one was also turned into a mini print, I think. And in case you're wondering, this colour is Mint by White Nights. People always ask me about mint, and then they always go and get it because I like to use it as highlights sometimes. Sketch down here. Yeah, here I really feel that I went in too heavy compared to this one. I think this one, I don't know, I just struck the right chord with this one, and this was a bit of, you know, I didn't, let's say. I think it's too heavy, it's overworked, that's what it is. Watercolor is something that you don't want to overwork. You want to leave the transparency and luminosity showing through, though I do like, again, I do like the hard edges in the background here and the splatters and all that. And that's that. That is that. And so many empty. You can tell the ones that are, you know, flat. Most of them are empty. Why? I just still. And this one is started in March, then I scratched that out. April 2024, Explorations and Experimentations Watercolor. I really do hope that I kept that promise. And that is the first spread in the sketchbook. I have to say I prefer this side because, again, I prefer muted tones, personal, you know, personal preference to really bright colors when it comes to watercolor. So the difference I can see is that one, I was getting more experimental with things like dry brush strokes. So trying that kind of thing out. So going from a wet and wet to a completely dry brush within the same area. And that I was also experimenting with elements that were not connected with each other, which is also interesting to me. And I really like the spread. I think I made a mini print out of this one too. We have the roses again. We have some kind of bird, surely checked, found the image on Pinterest, and a little sparrow, I think, up here. I was happy with this one. This might be one of my favourite spreads. Again, we see the habit of, I was testing like different watercolour eyes up here, and what I would have done previously is I would have tested probably one eye or a set of a pair of eyes, and then I would have moved on not only to the next page, but literally I would have turned over the page and left the rest blank. While here I've got 3 eyes, I've got the flowers, and I've got a portrait, and I'm experimenting with that dry brush stroke technique again, and I have a note to myself. I really love using milky blues in the face. So probably again here I was using some of that Mint by White Nights. So again, it's a good idea to keep those notes in your sketchbook to fill up every space, if that is what you want, if you don't find it too overwhelming, but definitely don't go wasting entire pages like I did. I will somehow make up for that because it is such a waste of precious paper and money. So I probably will go back and date them and use them, you know, for explorations and experiments. But I can see myself beginning to become more confident, as in I wasn't, you know, maybe I would have thought this eye wasn't that great compared to the other two that are, you know, much more alive, let's say. Possibly in 2022 or 2021 or whenever, I would have thought, okay, this eye doesn't look good, let's turn the page over. So yeah, I can see some progress in that, definitely, and definitely I can see progress in explorations and experimentations with dry and wet and just separate elements is what I see the most. And here is another page where I can tell that I was not worrying as much as before. This is Virginia Woolf. I've done Virginia Woolf a couple of times at least. Experimenting with a landscape. Here it says Perspective River. Yeah, I'm still trying to work out how perspective works. I have to admit I haven't really tried to learn it that well. I see my mushrooms are also getting better because I have, you know, that idea of dirt at the bottom of them. I was kind of observing more. I remember this specific portrait got a lot of hate on, I can't remember which social media it was. Maybe it was Facebook, because I had these white blank areas of paper below her eyes, and some people were commenting on how horrible that looked. Again, a page that says April 2024, and that feels like so long ago. I don't know why it feels like so long ago that I did this. I feel like this almost doesn't look like watercolor, but maybe it was kuretake, which is more like kind of opaque. It seems very overworked. I don't know why I didn't go in and paint this sketch. I really like it, so I don't know why I didn't do it. And this one is one that I really love. And this is the Roman mermaids one. Again, I'm not sure. I definitely did this one twice. It was a challenge, I think. Surely it was a challenge that started off with Tails Fantastic, Manel Oliphant, I think. These, what do you call them, bookmarks are by her. And she was asking to paint mermaids that lived in your river, in the river or in the waters of your hometown or locally to you. So I live in Rome, and these mermaids are Roman mermaids. My landscape technique is not very great, as you can tell. That's supposed to be St. Peter's Basilica. But yeah, at the same time, I really love this one's face, and the fact that this one's kind of poking out behind her. Again, I can definitely tell I was becoming more and more experimental and using sketchbooks as they should be used. I wish you could get an endless supply of these, like endless supply of these. I really love this yellow themed spread. I love this little fish in the gutter of the sketchbook. I love all the dancing ladies, the sleeping ladies. It feels like a dream to me, like something that you dream about, and it means something to you while you're sleeping and dreaming, and then the moment you wake up, that meaning is lost. I'm sure all of you have felt that. But anyway, that's what it feels like to me. This is another page I really love. I wrote it down. I love this flower. The idea of fish swimming through flowers, question mark. And then I love the palette on this page. I like its softness. I wish I had written down what colours I used. But one thing I can tell you is I left things kind of undefined, especially around the eye area. I didn't go in white, like with too much of a dark value to it. She doesn't have any eyelashes, which is something that I sometimes like to do. Less is more when it comes to eyelashes in paintings. So that's my humble opinion. And I really love these bleeding flowers. And that was done in June, 17th of June 2024. And this clearly also became a mini print, or part of it at least. I was definitely getting more and more experimental. I think this reminds me of, I was probably looking at some, is it the Absinthe Drinker? Picasso and other painters painted this woman drinking absinthe, which was this like really strong alcoholic drink. And also it says, note, think about cohesive palette beforehand. Clearly, I think I'd gone a bit too bonkers here. And then I give a title to this one. It's called The Tinfoil Cage. Okay. And I think that is the end of my sketchbook tour for this week, because after this I have more sketchbooks. Again, some of the ones are more polished. The Bao Hong ones, I think I've already done a sketchbook tour on YouTube about that one. But then I have these square ones. This one is my most recent one. It's super grubby, and I will be giving you a sketchbook tour about this most recent one next week. And there's also another square format one that I completed sometime probably in the second half of 2024. I really like this last page that I always have notes in the back of in the final page, so I won't show you that, but it is the last page, so I managed to kind of get all the way through this one, and I really like the eyes with the white eyelashes. So I'll go back to, let's see, my favorite spread in the sketchbook. I don't know which one it is. I think I have a few favorite spreads in the sketchbook. I don't know, let's just leave it at this one. And I will say thank you so much for watching. As always, thank you so much for all of you who are here every single week, who leave comments, show me so much support, appreciation and love. And I cannot even begin to describe how much that means to me. And I'm so happy about the connection I've created with a lot of you. On Patreon and off of Patreon, writing emails, you know who you are if you're watching this, and you have become my special people. So thank you so much, and I will see you all next week for an updated sketchbook tour, or i.e. my latest finished sketchbook. Bye.